Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. And my name is Zach. I host this podcast from week to week. It's available here on YouTube as well as all our streaming platforms, including things like Spotify and Apple Music. So feel free to give us a subscribe, all those sorts of things. It really helps other people find out about this podcast. We aim to make sure that we serve the aviation community, specifically general aviation, and those who are in flight training or interested in flight training, including CFIs. So if that fits for you, then you're in the right place. Today we're going to be talking with Hamilton. I'm excited to talk to you once more. We talked to you once on this podcast.
For sure.
Yeah.
The sequel.
So yeah, this is your sequel.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't got to meet Hamilton before, I think the first one was great. It was a great way to get to know you. So we'll talk a little bit more about who you are. Can you give the audience a brief introduction?
Yeah, so I'll give a little short spiel right now. Hello, everybody. My name is Hamilton Grant. Currently a CFI for thrust flight. Been working with thrust for a little over 6 months now. I did the full ZTA program. I'm trying to think. What else? I'm 19. Have been loving instructing. It's been a blast.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're glad to have you here. I think you do a lot for us. Recently, you were in Phoenix, right?
I was.
Yeah.
So
how did that come about?
Yeah. So that's a good question. I was up in Phoenix for maybe 2.5, 3 months, and it was a blast. I actually went up there. It's a new location and a pretty, I shouldn't say unique, but one of the really nice parts about working here at Thrust is they don't really start you out with new students initially. So those are like your private pilot students, right? Your brand new pilots. We try not to pair new pilots up with new or instructors, right? Yeah. So that's a new location. They had just sent some instructors down there, but no one was really private checked out apart from a couple of the higher ups. So I went up there to help take some load off of them for the privates. Did some instructing up there. I think I instructed about 3 people.
Nice.
So it was fun. It was a blast.
That's really cool. And that's a fairly new location. But if you guys aren't aware, in Mesa, Arizona, right outside of Phoenix, I guess we just call it the Phoenix location. But is it Falcon Field, right?
Yeah, Falcon's like one of the busiest deltas or that type of airspace in the U.S. or something like that.
I did not realize that actually.
Yeah.
And the location is nice. And I don't know if they've remodeled it yet, but I know that we have like all these plans to make it look all nice. But we have a big spot.
The campus. So we actually had a bunch of the build plans just set up on the walls there, and it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be competing with Addison for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think that'll be one of our most customized, most branded thrust locations,
like purpose
so far.
Built.
Yeah, really a lot of intention.
It's gonna be cool.
We built with what we had here in Addison, and everyone loves it.
Right.
But out there, we might have a little more of a special touch over time.
Right.
And then you got to do a little bit of a new flying, right? You did some aerobatic stuff.
Yeah. So that was kind of separate from thrust in my own flying time that I got extra. But I did some aerobatics, and that was absolutely a blast. What got me into aviation was actually a lot of aerobatic flying. So it was super, super cool to, well, I should say Phoenix is has a very diverse aerobatic community up there. So got to do a lot of aerobatic flying up there, which I loved. It was a blast.
Sweet. Well, I'm sure I'm going to have more questions about how both of those things have gone, you doing more aerobatics and also taking place and helping the privates get through.
100%.
But let's rewind a little bit so that people have just a small chance to get to know you if they haven't got to yet. Can you tell us a little bit about what got you into flying and how you started, that sort of thing?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been wanting to be a pilot for as long as I can remember, really. My family says, hey, this kid wanted to be a pilot ever since he was, 4 years old. Right. When I was 3, I was diagnosed with leukemia, which is a form of cancer. Spent a lot of time in the hospital, and you kind of get used to staring at those white walls all the time in the hospital. It's pretty boring. At the time, my father was a dispatcher. My mother just got done with being a flight attendant. Okay. So definitely had some influence. Staring at white walls in the hospital quickly turned into reading POHs and AFHs. And hey, my cousin was also in the Navy. He flew C2s. And hey, look at this new Navy NATOPS manual I found. This is so cool. And just nerding out. After that, I asked for a Make-A-Wish, and it was to fly. So I got to do some aerobatic stuff, and that's what got me into it from there. So that's really cool. Ever since then, it's been trying to claw to get into the cockpit, and was lucky enough to get some pretty fortunate opportunities with my education in high school. So I was able to partner with Thrust, do their CTA program.
Right.
I'm here now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's a really cool way to think about it. I'm imagining you got to nerd out being in that room for so much. You're
Oh
like, what
yeah,
else do I do, right?
yeah.
So you just kind of keep reading.
Sure.
What'd you do? Watch YouTube videos and
It
stuff
was
too?
it was everything, man. Like I'm not joking. It was like reading POHs, YouTube videos, flight sims, DCS. If anybody's heard of it, it's
Yeah,
just a bunch of nerding out and
yeah,
looking over material. I remember I used to play flight sim, and I mentioned my father was a dispatcher,
hmm
and he would dispatch my flights on flight sim. I'd go and fly him. Oh,
yeah.
look at this dispatch sheet and all this stuff. So
Did you have maybe like a favorite sort of like entertainment kind of content from aviation? Was like a YouTube channel or a creator or anything like that?
it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to choose just one because I listen to so many, and
Yeah,
I don't think I can put my finger on just one. But
right.
the flight sims really are what got me into it. It's just
Okay.
like being able to fly on flight sim.
And that was like Microsoft Flight Simulator,
Yeah,
or
that was the old one. That was like Flight Simulator X. So it's
okay,
like back before Microsoft Flight Sim even
okay,
really, like the new one really even existed. But
right.
yeah, and then did a disco up here too.
hmm
Just we moved from North Carolina to Texas,
Okay.
so I did a disco up here, and
Yeah.
it's like yeah, I already know I want to do this. So
Right.
just because of all that, I guess exposure that I had
Exactly.
to aviation.
That makes sense. I mean, and then you get to Dallas, and you're like, okay, you get into a high school that has some programs that exposes
Yeah,
you a little bit more, right?
sure,
And then that allows you to kind of partner with us here at Thrust.
sure.
And then, at what point did you start training for your private pilot
So I
license?
actually started training for private pilot when I was 16.
Okay.
That's also when I soloed as well.
Okay.
So that was when I was I want to say a sophomore. I
Uh-huh.
graduated a year early from high school, so everything's a little bit shifted.
Yeah.
So it's technically like my sophomore, junior year.
Uh-huh.
So started flying at Thrust at 16. Private and instrument came at 17.
Nice.
Then I graduated to the next year.
hmm
And then pretty much all the rest came commercial, CFI, CFW,
Right.
commercial multi.
Right. Was there any programs that sort of helped assist you getting such a good start in aviation? I mean, I'm sure your parents were supportive,
Yeah.
but I just was wondering what that might look like.
So honestly, it was mainly Rising Aviation and Thrust. So that's the high school that I went to, and
Uh-huh.
then in conjunction with Thrust Flight, the people at both companies really helped me. I guess do things like apply for scholarships and find CFIs to ask
Right.
questions, and gave a pretty stable environment for me to not only finish out my high school education, but
Uh-huh.
continue on and keep flying. So
Yeah.
all the people to thank over there at Rise and over here at Thrust.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Well, it's great to have you here at Thrust
Yeah, I
because
appreciate it.
by the time you got to your CFI, I mean, and you went through the ZTA program. Everyone who goes through the ZTA program isn't necessarily guaranteed a spot as a
Sure,
CFI, but you at least get an interview.
sure,
And so you get through your interview process and you become a
sure.
CFI with us. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like approaching becoming a CFI? Because
Yeah,
I think that's stressful for a lot of people, and maybe
sure.
your experience doesn't speak for everyone. But I'm just a little. Can you
Sure.
talk a little bit about
Yeah,
that?
100%. And that's a really good point. I teach a lot of the CFWI academies here at our Addison location.
Okay.
And so that's basically the last rating or
Mhm.
teaching license, however you want to think about it, that
Uh-huh.
they get before they go into we turn them away and go, oh yeah, you're a graduated student now, congrats.
Right.
And one of the biggest things I hear is, and I experienced it too, is imposter syndrome, right?
Yeah.
You've spent maybe, a year, a little under that, just grinding on these books and reading and how can I be a good teacher? You learn all the psychology and
hmm
CFI and double I, you're just adding more of your, past experience onto that. And
Right.
there comes a point in which you realize, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the one now entrusted to um, hand this information down to the next generation of pilots. And it's a
Right.
little bit freaky
Yeah.
until
Especially when you're in the cockpit.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. 100, yeah, that's true. And it's not like something that it's oh yeah, I'm just teaching someone how to do something on the ground. No, you're teaching someone how to fly a plane, which is
Yeah.
really critical. That's someone else's son, daughter,
Yeah.
mother, and the father in the left seat there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty consequential. So
hmm
there's definitely some man, am I really cut out for this?
Right.
But as you progress and as you gain more experience, that feeling slowly fades. You still get it every now and then, but
Yeah.
it becomes more of a normalcy.
Yeah.
Uh,
That makes sense. That makes sense to me. And it's weird to think that you can get to a point to where that sort of thing is normal. Because
Yeah,
I think a lot of people enter our program, maybe not everyone, but I mean, even you, who's someone who was maybe a bit more well versed in aviation by the time you started,
sure,
started as a CFI or
sure.
something, or even as a private pilot. People start with no real exposure to aviation,
Sure.
and to think that you can get to a point to where you're like, hey, I'm teaching people how to fly a
It's
plane right
wild,
now.
right?
It's pretty crazy. Yeah. Okay. So can you tell me a little bit then about what it was like settling into your role as a CFI?
Yeah. I guess that's true because I guess the last time we talked, it was maybe a month into me really being a CFI. But
Right.
it was a really smooth transition. It
Mhm.
it, it worked out well because we have a lot of good leadership in Thrust who are always willing to kind of walk you through things. We always or
Mhm.
a big mantra that we have is always ask questions as a CFI. It's better to ask a question than to be wrong, right?
Right.
As it pertains to a student's curriculum, aeronautical decision making, any of those topics, right?
Right.
So it really helped that transition. And then I really think one thing that helped me was experiencing those tiny victories,
Yeah.
student passing a check ride, or, I just recently I had a student walk up to me and ask to, write him a letter of recommendation to apply for a scholarship.
Pretty
And
cool.
it's just like all that builds credibility through experience, and it's
Okay.
really, really rewarding.
Wow.
So that's one of the things that helped me out, and I think everybody might have their own little tweak that's like, oh yeah, I can actually do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm thinking about, there's other ways to, get experience flying after you get your commercial, outside of instructing, right? But to me, I hear things like what you just said, building that structure and that knowledge
Yeah.
through the experience, and
Yeah.
maybe even just the, what did you say? Not accountability, credibility. There you
Yeah.
go. Building credibility
Yeah.
through your experience. I just think that there's not much like that,
Yeah.
when it comes to other ways of building hours or
Yeah.
whatever. Because I don't know if you begin to look into what it's like to apply an interview and things like
Sure.
that. But sounds like those are the sorts of things that you're going to be able to speak to.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Have you looked into any of that? I mean, it's a little early, I'm sure, but have you looked into the process of getting hired and what that's going to look like for you?
Yeah, so like steps I guess after I finish my instructing career.
Right.
A little bit. Honestly, I've been enjoying instructing.
Hmm.
It's a blast, and it's hard to find anything that really beats it.
Yeah.
I'm currently trying to get an undergraduate pilot training slot in the National Guard, hopefully to fly fighters. We'll see.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a lot of like interviewing and technical reviews and sharing your experience and testing.
Yeah.
So it does come in handy to have built your aviation experience
Mhm.
in a more academic environment because you're the one forwarding the knowledge.
Right.
So it makes it a lot easier to really have an understanding and grasp of that knowledge you are forwarding.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And that's one of the main things that I think CFIs say. They're like, you can pass a check ride
Yeah,
and you can fly a plane,
sure,
but when you instruct, you really find out how much you know,
100%.
and then you learn more.
I always tell my students, there's a difference between having knowledge of a topic and an understanding of a topic, right? I
Hmm.
can have a knowledge of a topic and, talk spit out the answer all day. It's just rote. But when you transition to CFI and you're the one responsible for, again, forwarding that knowledge to a student, you now need to have a little bit more of an understanding of
Right.
general concepts below it. And it's something you learn really quick.
Yeah,
It happens very fast.
I can imagine. Yeah. Okay, so now that you're where you are as a CFI,
Sure.
you've been in, like you said, about 6 more months now,
Yeah.
or 6 months as a CFI. Is there anything that you've come to enjoy the most about being a CFI?
Man,
Is there a favorite part?
that's a hard question.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I think CFI, it's a very tough job. I won't lie. There's a lot of stress that goes into making sure someone's properly prepared to fly an aircraft by
Yeah.
themselves. But it's super rewarding. There's like so many different rewarding things that happen in or being a CFI.
Yeah.
Trying to think. Probably when students come to me and they're like, "Hey, I never understood that until you told me," or when students come to you and say, "Hey, um, you were a great CFI. I'll remember you when
Yeah.
get to the airlines." It's really cool because you get to say that you played a really big part in
Mhm.
someone else's life, right?
Yeah.
And their story could be as great as yours. So it's really cool to say you had a part in that.
I always I think it's like a really human thing to like I used to think it was kind of like maybe egotistical to want to have a positive impact,
Yeah.
like doing something nice for
Sure.
someone makes you feel good. So like,
Sure.
am I really doing it for them, or
Yeah.
am I really doing it for myself?
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I think again, speaking with so many
Sure.
CFIs, when I ask a question like that, it's always, man, that light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Everyone loves to see that light bulb moment go off, and I think it may just be it's as equally satisfying to have transferred some
Sure.
sort of knowledge or energy to someone else,
Sure.
and then for your light bulbs, for that, it's a connection thing.
Yeah.
And to know that you have impact on someone's future. I
Sure.
think that's
And you
nice.
talked about if it's will or ego, and I would say it's a bit of both,
Yeah.
right? It's just humanity to want to be able to forward some good, in the places around you, and
Right.
it's cool to be able to see a positive impact, and it lifts your ego up. Remember, I talked to you about it's like those tiny things of
Yes.
experience that it's like lift your ego up. But you're also, it's like unequivocally or objectively lifting someone else up, so that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, and I used to wonder about that, but
Yeah.
I mean, I've kind of come to see it, and maybe because of this, that I think it is both.
Yeah.
When someone else's light bulb goes off, yours goes off, I
Yeah.
guess. So that's pretty cool. Well, okay, so now that you're where you're at and you're flying, like, is there something you're focused on more than anything at the moment?
Honestly, the vast majority of my focus goes to like flying and students, looking at course guides, looking at curriculum. There's a lot of little tiny things that we do on a daily basis, that even our students never really see. It's like logging lessons and making sure students' flight time is correct,
Right.
and let me plan this flight. And how is my lesson plan? Or I should say, what is my lesson plan going to look like
Right.
for today? But apart from that, honestly, the biggest new thing that I've been trying to focus on is just developing myself as a pilot. Aerobatics, I already talked about that with you. It's probably the biggest thing that I've been trying to really get some time under my belt and understand more of the inner workings of how an airplane functions aerodynamically.
Right.
And
Because that's really what aerobatics is. I mean, that's really what it's about, right?
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
it makes a difference too when you're
Yeah.
actually in the plane. You'll fly that decathlon for 3 hours, and it feels like you've been flying the Archer for 10. So it really helps. I guess that stick and rudder type feel.
Yeah.
But that's probably the major thing.
Yeah.
It also helps with some stuff later down the line with the guard and stuff like
Right.
that.
And that's I'm gonna end up still gonna ask you more about that.
100%.
Before we move on to it, and it's because I'm glad to know that that's what you're
Yeah.
working on, and that's why I asked. But it made me think to myself after hearing a lot of the things that you've worked on so far.
Sure.
You talk about even what it might look like to go into the guard, and
Sure.
and even you talk about some of the behind the scenes
Sure.
of working with students as a CFI, and how there is a lot of little technical things and logs and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and understanding things up from an academic level
Right.
and how to approach. To me, when you say these things, is first of all, I can only imagine. I mean, I'm 31 now.
Right.
Say that out loud on the internet. I'm 31 now, and I just one thing I was never good at was understanding like processes and like maybe the academic workflow of like
Right.
of like a paper turned in and following a system and instructions
Right.
and things like that. And I'm not sure what the word is I'm looking for there, but it's like systems and
Yeah.
stuff like that. From your point of view, is there do you have insight as to how that is an important soft skill?
It's another good question. Because even transitioning from high school, I was still learning a lot of those type of
Right.
techniques in terms of, hey, like study habits. How do we get this done procedurally? How do we obtain this more academic level of understanding in this specific topic? So
Because this is something that I think a lot of people might pick up in their high
Yeah.
school, but a lot of people get through college, and I didn't. I started working instead of finishing
Yeah.
college, so personally, I just learned it through jobs.
yeah,
and I found the struggle in that. So.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I think it just depends on the person, number one, and I think everybody can learn it eventually, but it just depends on your specific circumstance. Like
Right.
for flying, like that's when I learned a lot of those skills. When I went to my instructor and did poorly on the ground and was like, crap, I got to find a different way to study.
Exactly.
And it's like you kind of, it's like that trial and error kind of figuring out what works, for you to increase that neuroplasticity so that you
Yeah.
can properly learn a topic.
Right.
And I think it's different for everybody, right?
Yeah.
But definitely what I'll say is if you have the time to lay that groundwork, like even before flight training, or if, you have some time to professionally develop yourself or something
Right.
like that, definitely helps. because just saying, hey, I put time and effort into learning this concept, and now I can apply how I learned this concept to aviation.
Right.
It helps. It
And
helps.
so to just to take that a little bit, like not necessarily further, but to try to maybe make it relevant to the people who need to hear
Right.
it. I'm thinking about the young people who are coming in, and
Right.
maybe they're close to your age,
Yeah.
right? But maybe people who are coming out of high school
Sure.
or coming out of like some sort of college
Sure.
program and entering flying, or maybe they're going into college. Maybe
Sure.
whoever's listening to this is doing whatever they're going to do,
Right.
but you kind of can get blindsided by your lack of skill here, right?
Sure.
If you're not aware that, because personally, I was just a very in the moment kind of
Sure.
person. I mean, I worked creatively most of my career, and it only got to a point to where a lot of my creative work was eventually finally kind of capped out at my
Sure.
ability to be procedural and understand things on an academic level enough to be able to delegate and things
Right.
like that. So what I'm looking to maybe uncover here is, in what scenario do you think someone might realize that they need to kind of work on some of this skill?
Let me think about that. That's a good question.
Yeah, maybe make it relevant to a new pilot, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Um.
And you mentioned for yourself, kind of.
Yeah. So in terms of aviation, I feel like it's one of those things that you feel immediately. If
Hmm.
not, it's like your first time either flying the aircraft and something doesn't go how you predict it to go because of your knowledge base,
Hmm.
or two, in some sort of grounded testing environment, right?
Right.
You hate to say it, but you'll always have that moment in aviation where you really have to put what you know to use, right?
Hmm.
And you'll quickly find out if you don't have that in that circumstance, right?
Right.
So we call it like aha moments. It's like, oh crap, that could have gone pretty badly,
Okay.
and I wasn't, I should have studied this more, and then that
Hmm.
kind of what I should say kicks people into gear.
Okay.
I feel like if you have the ambition to really want those, or really get those study strategies, those study tips,
Yeah.
learning how to process things procedurally, it comes with time. And
Yeah.
if you put in the effort in it, it will come, right?
Right.
But it's just wanting to put in that effort,
That
right?
makes sense. Yeah. I think what I hear there is, I like how you said the aha moment. I always thought about aha moments, kind of like position, like more like a moment where like I learned something that I couldn't understand
Yeah.
before, but you kind of made it sound more like a reality check in a
Sure.
way,
Yeah.
which I think is
100%.
is better
Yeah.
because we look for aha moments, but it's really just it's not after the issue
Sure.
happens, it's in the issue,
Sure.
kind of, and you gain ambition there, and you kind of figure it out.
Sure.
It comes with time. Yeah, that makes sense. I just
Yeah.
like to try to point that out, that there's a skill that comes with like what you learn from being a student,
Yeah.
and working with a team of people, or deciphering information and being able to
100%.
repeat it. That's a type of skill that I think is important. And it's weird because people come to aviation because they're like to be hands on,
Yeah.
but you're still gonna have to have those study
Sure.
skills.
Sure.
So
100%.
I guess before we move on about those study skills, though, is
Right.
there any tips you have for people who are have entered into aviation and are a little surprised about how much studying is
Yeah,
involved?
so that's a good question. The major ones that worked for me is number one, like repetition, right? And I feel like people sometimes are like, oh my gosh, you're the fourth person to tell me this. Like aviation is one of those things that's so broad, it's so diverse in its knowledge. It's impossible to just look at something
Right.
and memorize it the first time,
Right.
and not have to worry about forgetting it later on down the line.
Hmm.
My commercial instructor, one of the things he taught me is for every like hour of flight time you do, study on the ground two,
Okay.
right? And that's to give you that time that it really takes to develop that knowledge like into your brain
Yeah.
mentally, right?
Absolutely.
So that's the first biggest thing. The second that helped for me is like writing stuff down. Writing
Yes.
stuff down helps a lot. I'm a bad writer, but even though sometimes it isn't legible, I just scribble it down anyway. It
Mhm.
helps your brain memorize things.
Right. Being able to put it into physical action makes the
Yeah.
knowledge more tangible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And then the second or the third thing, I guess, is just keeping, and this one probably pertains to flying more, is
Mhm.
keeping your studying real. Like one of the things I used to do is I used to listen to loud music and just recite emergency checklists.
Yeah.
And the reason I did that is because, if you think you're in a plane, there's a loud engine in front of you.
Yes.
You get an emergency, you're not expecting it, and all of a sudden, these survival skills have to kick in like that under a lot of pressure and a
Right.
lot of like external calamity or whatever.
Yeah.
So kind of finding your own way to kind of, recreate that environment. Yeah, 100%. And that's another thing that I learned in multi.
Yeah.
Like one of the things, we have this procedure that we run whenever we fly the multi-engine Seminole, right? So you're learning how to fly with 2 engines. It's a lot of, managing aircraft systems and procedural stuff. But, every time you pull up to a red light, oh my gosh, it's an engine failure. What do I do? Right. Yeah. And then you're all of a sudden working through the flows in your car, and it kind of helps you build that mental repetition of, performing in that harsh environment.
We just did our first aerobatics and upset recovery camp recently, and were you there by chance? You weren't.
No,
right?
I wasn't. I was teaching the CFII Academy, but we were looking at it on Instagram. We were like, man, that would be so cool.
Yeah, well, the guy there, I mean, he's he's a pretty experienced. Is Kurt? Yep. Kurt
I think that's
Richmond.
Yeah,
Kurt Richmond. So he's pretty experienced, and he's part of the ACA and things like that. And he gave a lot of good knowledge, but he talked about how he pulls up to a red light sometimes.
Sure.
And or was it him? And I think his son might fly.
Yeah.
I heard someone talking about pulling up to the light with their son when they fly. Oh, no, I'm so sorry. It was actually at Thrust Day.
Yeah.
The ATC guy who came in. He talked about when he pulls up to the light and he tests his son all the time. He says, now read this, do call outs for me. And he's talking about northbound on X, Y, and Z, So it was really funny to hear that he does that at lights as well.
So true.
I wanted to maybe ask you one more thing about that, but I also wanted to mention, I was listening to a podcast recently, and I guess I'll make myself sound a little nerdy here, but it was Andrew Huberman and the guy who wrote Atomic Habits. He had James Clear on there. And it was, I only tune in every now and then, but I wanted to hear those two speak because it was an interesting conversation. Anyways, they talked about how if you're studying or you're writing or you just learn something, that it's good to literally just think about it afterwards. Give yourself time to just literally only
100%.
think. Can you recall it immediately afterwards? And if you can recall 100%. It, that does a lot of the studying work for you. So that repetition you talk about, and then after hearing that, I've been learning a lot of things lately, and so I'll watch a lot of videos and try to decipher information. I'll write about it, and when I'm driving, I'll have no music on it, and I'll be like, could I say what I learned? 100%. Can I explain it to myself? Yeah. And if I can't, then I need to learn it a little more. But if I can, I'm like, okay, I got it in there.
So true.
So
true.
Anyways, maybe that won't be in the podcast, but I understand.
Yeah.
Aerobatic flying, though. Just something you were interested in from the jump. This is where flying goes from general aviation to man, I'm really flying a plane right now. You're really understanding an aircraft and how it maneuvers through the air aerodynamically. And you're exercising a lot of control.
Sure.
A lot of people love this sort of flying, right? Can you tell me a little bit about what you've done and how you got started?
Yeah. So I haven't done. I'll say I'm not crazy experienced in aerobatics. I'm pretty much just working on something that we call primary power, which is one of the first type of aerobatic sets. You group up a maneuver and you group it up into a set, right?
Right.
It's one of the first sets that you do as an aerobatic pilot to kind of get used to flying this aircraft outside of your normal envelope, right? I originally got into
what is it called one more time?
Primary power.
Primary power. Gotcha.
Yeah, with the IAC, which is one of the major aerobatic organizations.
Right.
So originally I got into it up here in Texas. Again, flew out in Denton for a little while and did a few hours. Did some introductory things with aerobatics. Then I went to Phoenix. Flew out of Deer Valley, I think it was.
Yeah.
A super cool guy. This guy's an engineer and an unlimited category aerobatic competitor. So or he flies unlimited category aerobatics. That's what I should say.
Right.
Which means he can fly all the way down to the surface and do a bunch of tricks, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But learned a lot from him. Trying to the best I can get back there whenever I can and fly, and hopefully I really want to compete. That's the goal.
Yeah.
But it's fun. It's blast. There's not much like it.
We're supposed to be working. This nothing's official yet.
Sure.
But I think I'm allowed to say this because it's something we said online.
Sure.
We're entertaining the idea and trying to put together an aerobatics competitive team.
Would be so cool.
And I'm pretty sure we're supposed to get a plane in.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be something that we offer through the ZTA program as well.
Sure.
Maybe it's an add-on or something like that,
Sure.
something like the multi. But it's an opportunity that we're pretty excited about having, because that's part of what a lot of people want to fly with, and we want to make sure we can do that, and it'll look good for the company, to have a competitive team. Have you heard much about that or?
Yeah, I did. I first notification on Instagram. I had some friends send it to me. I was like, "This is cool.
Yeah.
This is cool." In aerobatics here in Texas, it's pretty niche, to be honest. There's
Yeah.
only a few people who really do it, and and those people are normally pretty privatized. Like, it's not like a company willing to sell you the training, right?
Right.
So the idea of that, so cool, so cool.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the opportunity for the students to learn those advanced handling characteristics.
Yes.
Really cool.
And
Really
I think
cool.
everyone will have a point at which they touch base on that, on some
Yep.
of that learning, and it'll help them probably flying other planes,
Yeah.
the Pipers. But uh, yeah, Patrick's really excited about the idea of getting, like you said, getting more of a community
Sure.
going here, because right now it's like kind of small and niche.
Sure.
We're looking to liven it up and bring youth into
Right.
it, and give more access to
Right.
it. What is there to know? What is, if someone hears, let's just say someone doesn't know what aerobatic flying is at all, is there anything that a regular person who's just kind of interested in
Yeah.
aviation can hear to understand the idea of what aerobatic flying is?
Yeah. So the goal of aerobatic flying, I guess,
Mhm.
in its most basic
And
sense,
how it kind of exists in aviation
yeah,
right now.
sure. So the goal of aerobatic flying, and I guess its most basic sense, is to maneuver an aircraft as accurately as possible in front of a big panel of judges who they grade you on your flying, right?
Yeah.
Not only does it teach you a ton about aerodynamics, handling an aircraft, it's a ton of fun, right? You
Yeah.
get to pull some G's for the first time. It's a blast, and like. Even if you're not, interested in competing,
Yeah.
number one, they're normally tail wheels, so you learn a lot about like stick and rudder skills,
Yeah.
using more of the aircraft controls effectively.
Mhm.
But like, there's not a feeling that's more free than being like able to just say, I want to do a loop right now, and just going upside down or doing a split S, and
Yeah.
pulling some G's. It's like, man, I'm the closest thing there is to a bird, other than an actual bird in the sky right now.
And I think that's what people
Yeah.
start flying for sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Oh, it's great. It's
yeah.
great. It's like I say normal flying, but it's like just flying in the Archer times 10.
Yeah.
If you can even times it anymore,
Yeah.
it's fun.
It's this
Fun.
phrase you get. I think Kurt Richmond put it as this is what you get to. This is like what all your instructors in GA flying tell you not to do, but you're
Yeah.
like supposed to.
It's so unnatural. Like, well, like when you first start, it doesn't feel like you'll go upside down for the first time, and you're still expected to think about the next maneuver in your set, and you're like, man,
It's inverted.
I gotta tighten this up, or I gotta make sure my wings are level over the top on the next maneuver, and it's like it's hard because it's your brain's going, I was never trained for this. What's going
Exactly.
on? I'm looking at the ground right now, and I'm looking up. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's fun.
That's pretty exciting. That is pretty exciting. Okay, and then one other. Well, I say one other. I still would like the idea of continuing to expose the idea of it to people.
Yeah.
How does it exact? I'm sorry. How does aerobatic flying exist outside of the competition? And is there applications in like fighter jets and things, or what?
Yeah, so that's a good question. To be honest, it's one of those things that is fairly niche, at least in like a job capacity.
Uh-huh.
What I will say is, if you walk up to an employer and say, "Hey, I did aerobatic flying," they're automatically going to know that you put time and effort into learning more again about these handling characteristics of the aircraft, and you might
Right.
have a better grasp on the aircraft aerodynamically.
Uh-huh.
For stuff like the guard you mentioned, it looks really good, right? Because
Yeah.
fighter jets go upside down all the time.
Yeah.
So it's like, man, if you can survive upside down in the Kaplan, you might be able to make it through undergraduate pilot training if that's something that you wanted to do.
Okay.
So it looks good for them. But oftentimes it's people will get into aerobatics, and it's just one of those things that you can do for fun, just like flying to different satellite airports and enjoying the FBOs there.
Same difference,
You
yeah.
fly out and just do a bunch of tricks in the air, right? It's a blast. It's so much fun. So much fun.
I'm wondering if someone is interested in aerobatic flying right now, and maybe
Yeah.
they're, I mean, it's like you said, it's not always the most accessible.
Yeah, so
but
true.
let's just say they're anywhere. Maybe they do like I know there's different communities in
Yeah.
different states and stuff like that. But let's just say someone was interested, and maybe they've already started their regular flight training. What would they do? Would they just Google someone, look
Yeah,
people up?
so I would look up IAC. If you literally just look up the letters IAC and then aerobatic chapter,
Mhm.
you'll be able to find like your nearest like official regulated aerobatic chapter. I'm trying to go to a couple of the meets here. I've never been able to get to any of the ones in Texas. But a lot of times they'll host meets and they'll say, oh, I'm flying my decathlon or I'm flying my game bird at this event. The AOPA also has some stuff, to my knowledge, or in conjunction with the IAC. And then they have a list of like different aerobatic schools that you can go to there. So you can scroll down the list, be like, hey, this school is accredited by the IAC. So
that's pretty cool. And so you would say finding relevant events near you is, and through those mediums is gonna what's help you expose yourself to aerobatic flying, because you also get to go out with people sometimes, just being around, get to know people. That's what networking looks like, I guess.
100%.
Okay, cool. I just like to let people know that there is an in for that, and then hopefully Thrust is going to have access to that for you guys as well. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but we're going to have some information really soon. We're already working on some of it, and Patrick's really excited about it.
I'm so stoked. I'm so stoked. You don't understand.
No, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, that's why you started flying, and then here you are, just boom. Okay, great. Is there anything else you'd like people to know about aerobatic flying?
Oh, man.
I mean, we kind of touched base.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like we covered so much of it.
Is there anything that you've done that you've enjoyed the most?
That I've done, that like a specific maneuver?
Maybe, yeah.
Spins, inverted spins, like things like that. Really fun. You're just spinning upside down, looking at the ground. I'm trying to think of a favorite maneuver. I am absolutely terrible at them, and they're way above my experience level. But there's, if the viewers or whatever want to look it up, there's this thing called an avalanche, and it is the most like chaotic, violent maneuver. It feels like the aircraft is like spinning on its axis, but you're also tumbling through the air. It's fun. It's cool.
I have some footage from the camp, and I'm not. It was the pits. What was it? The pits.
Oh yeah, those things are wild.
SB, something like that. It was like a double decker.
Yeah.
And so Kurt was flying it, and I have some footage from the ground. I had like a 300 millimeter lens, right? So I could capture it. It was a little tough, but and some of that footage, and it's at the end of the video actually that I uploaded on YouTube. It's like an hour video with a lot of knowledge about aerobatic flying.
Sure.
But at the end of the video, I just put just a few clips of him doing something that might be what you're talking about. Because it just looked like he like threw himself into a frenzy.
And the pits
going forward.
The pits is a wild plane. That thing is so crazy. I always tell people
he looked like he could do whatever he wanted.
Oh, it's wild. Same for the game bird. It's like I always tell people, flying an airplane is very much a conversation. The people who know me are probably like, oh my gosh, he's telling me this again. But flying an airplane is very much a conversation. Like something like the decathlon, which is a little bit more docile. It still maneuvers great, but it's definitely more docile. As an aircraft, you talk to it, you go, okay, well, I want to do a 4-point roll, and it goes, oh, do you really want to do a 4-point roll? And it's like, yeah, I want to do a 4-point roll. And it says, oh, well, you used a little bit too much rudder. You need more top rudder on this, next 4-point that you do, and you're going back and forth with the plane. The GB1 in the pits, they just do it. They say, I want to do a 4-point roll, and that plane goes, okay, and it'll just throw you into it, right?
Just throws you,
It's crazy, which means you got to be careful what you tell it, right? Because if you tell it the wrong thing, you get yourself into a whole slurry of predicaments. But those aircraft are really cool.
Wow. So that means it's like the equivalent to having just like a lot of dexterity, a lot of specific control. Kind of, it's reactive. That's good. Well, cool. That sounds exciting. I'm excited to have more of that for you guys to listen to. I mean, I think we've covered a lot of things that I'd like to know.
For sure.
It's good to know that you're doing well.
I appreciate it.
Here at Thrust.
I appreciate it.
So it's good to have you back in Addison. You were out in Arizona for a little while.
Yep.
If anyone's listening and you're interested in flight training, I'm sure you enjoy this conversation enough to get to this point. And it's nice to have you as a viewer. If you want to return again, please hit the subscribe button. It really helps us out and helps more people find us the same way that you have. And if you are interested and have not yet, a discovery flight is a good way to kind of like push the envelope for yourself
100%.
to really see if it's something you're interested in doing more. Even if you don't know how you would get more involved with aviation, if you just kind of find a discovery flight, you really like it, you'll start to find a way to get more involved. Discovery flight is just basically like a test drive of a plane with a certified instructor. You can Google flight school near me and they'll offer you a discovery flight. And if you're near Thrust, we do amazing discovery flights. We have a good time doing it, and we have our Pipers. So come check us out if you're anywhere near.
Some of my favorite flights to do are discoveries.
That's what Evan was just saying on our last podcast. He talked about a discovery flight really amazingly. He says he takes people over their home and tells their family to come out and they wave and things like that. So there's nothing like taking your first test drive like that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
But yeah, if you guys are still listening, we'd love to have you as a returning viewer. Like, comment, subscribe, the whole thing. Welcome to Pilots Say What, where you get to hear what pilots have to say. And thank you once again, Hamilton, for being on this episode. We'll see you guys next week.